I'm Chef Richard Miller. Welcome to Chef Richard's Kitchen. Today we're going to go back kind of to my Czechoslovakian or Bohemian roots. And as I've mentioned before, and you probably well know, my maternal grandfather was Bohemian. In fact, most of his family came from the old country over in Bohemia, now Czechoslovakia. But I've made on these series, I've made some Bohemian hoska and things like that. Well, today I'm going to make another Czech dish, and this is boiled beef and dill gravy. And although I don't remember that of being a staple at home, we had a restaurant back in Omaha. It's called Bohemian Cafe, and one of their dishes that I just absolutely loved was their boiled beef and dill sauce. And I never managed to get the recipe, but I have come up with a good recipe here that is delicious. Now, if anybody out there has gone to the Bohemian Cafe, knows knows somebody, knows an old former cook or something like that, and has a recipe for that, please, email me at chefrdmiller@att.net and let me know. I'd be more than happy if I could get an actual recipe of what they used. They've been closed for years now, so it isn't going to be any kind of infringement on them. So anyway, let's start out. What we're going to start out with is we're going to have to boil the beef. And I'm starting out with about 2 pounds of beef eye roast. Now that's one of the tougher cuts of meat coming out of the cattle. And so we want to make sure that we've cooked this a long, low time, low and slow, to make sure that all the fibers and everything are broken down. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it into a stock pot, and we're going to use a couple of chopped up carrots, 3 stalks of celery, and we're going to put those in. Now, if you don't want to go to all this trouble, that's fine. Just go ahead and use about 4 cups of beef broth. And the only difference here is when you put the carrots and the celery in here and simmer the beef in there, that's the old-fashioned way of making your own stock. So if you don't want to go to all this, go ahead and just get 4 cups, which is about a box, of beef stock, and just use that. All right, let's go ahead and put in our beef roast. Here's personal preference, and I just take and put in about a teaspoon of the powdered beef bouillon. And now let's go ahead and add 4 cups of water. Now let's go ahead and we're going to put this on the stove, and we're going to let it come up to a boil. Then we're going to turn it down to a simmer, and we're going to let it simmer for a couple of hours. So let me take this over to the stove. Okay, now we're going to let this come up to a boil. It'll probably take about 4 or 5 minutes, something like that. It isn't going to be long. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn it down to simmer. So no sense in making you guys wait. I'll be right back. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes and our meat has come to a boil over here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn it down and we're going to let it simmer. So let's go to the stove again. You can see from the camera here how it's boiling nicely. So let's turn this down. And we're going to put a lid on it, and we're just going to let it simmer. So now we're going to let it simmer for, probably about a couple of hours, and we're going to come out, we're going to take the temperature of it, and we're going to put a fork in there and we're going to see how tender it is. It may need to be in there just a little bit longer. And if it does, well, that's fine too. So anyway, we'll see you in a couple hours and we'll go ahead and check it at that point. Don't go far. All right, it's been about 3.5, 4 hours. And if you remember right, I told you that the eye around is a pretty tough piece of meat, and we're going to have to let it cook low and slow for quite a while. But I think it's pretty well tender now. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take the meat out of the pot, and we're going to go ahead and strain the liquid because we've gotten everything out of the celery and the carrots. What we want now is we want the beef broth because that's what we're going to use to make the dill gravy out of. So let me go ahead and take the meat out right now, and we're going to let it rest just a little while. Okay, yeah, that looks like it's getting pretty tender there. So all right, now let's go ahead and I'm going to turn the stove off, and I'm going to go ahead and I've got a strainer here, so I'm going to go ahead and strain the vegetables out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I've got the broth strained, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a couple of cups, actually about 2.5 cups back in. Okay, now we're going to take it back over to the stove. And we're going to add 16 ounces of sour cream. In this case, I'm using light sour cream. 2 tablespoons of vinegar. 2 tablespoons of salt. Did I say 2 tablespoons of sugar and 3 tablespoons of flour? And what this is going to do is this is going to thicken it. Alright, so the first thing let's do is let's add our 2 teaspoons of white vinegar. Now we're going to add our 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now, this time we're going to add 1/2 cup of dill. And that's just fresh dill that I've chopped. And I'm going to get off the whisk. I'm going to add a little bit of the flour. Not much, because I don't know how thick this is going to get when we put the sour cream in. And we're going to start putting in the sour cream. Okay, I'm going to turn up the heat a little bit, because remember, when you add flour or cornstarch or whatever, it doesn't thicken until it boils. Okay, let's give it a little bit of time here. Let it come up to a boil. All right, it's thickening up nicely, so let's take a little taste. It's good, but it's just a little bit sour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit more sugar in here. And then let's try it again. Much better. Let's turn off the heat. It's up to a good gravy consistency now. So let's go ahead and cut the meat and let's plate. Alright, let's go ahead and we're going to cut our eye of round. As you can see, it's getting pretty tender. It's almost like a pot roast at this point. All right, now let's go ahead and let's add our dill gravy. Okay, right now here we have our boiled beef with dill gravy. To garnish, let's just go ahead and put a sprig of dill and maybe a little piece of lemon with that because it is citrusy. And there we go. Boiled beef with a dill gravy. Go ahead and give this a try. Please do. Please try it. Let me know, send me an email or leave me a comment on how it comes out and how you like it. So, once again, thank you for joining me for this episode. Take care, God bless. Remember that cooking should always be fun, and I'll look forward to seeing you next episode. Thanks again. Bye-bye.